And there for you folks is Puerto Rico in under a minute. Me llamo Kenneth Median Joseph Altier, and by now you figured out that I am a little bit of a filmmaker. I do a lot of videos. I got about 500 videos on YouTube. A little bit of experience, but today's presentation is on the country of Puerto Rico, also known as a Commonwealth of the United States, meaning that it is in between statehood as well as an independent nation. They are, in fact, United States citizens, and that is something that a lot of Americans don't even know. They do not require a passport to be here. Their license is no different than an out-of-state license, just like going from New York down to South Carolina. And they are not necessarily immigrants. That means that they can move to the mainland whenever they want and go back if they would like, and it's not immigration. So for some of you out there that might not know, Puerto Rico is a beautiful island located in the Caribbean. And this video is incredibly important to me because I kind of live with a Puerto Riqueña or a Boricua, which I will explain that term here in a moment. There's some things that you might need to know about Puerto Ricans that you just don't understand, is that they are incredibly passionate people. They are very family orientated. They love song and dance, and they are very prideful, and they are rightfully so. They should be because of the history. We'll talk about history in a minute, but first things first, La capital de Puerto Rico es San Juan, and the major cities within Puerto Rico, there's a numerous count of them, but you also have the most popular, which is San Juan, known for one of the biggest tourist attractions in Puerto Rico. You also have Ponce, and you have Mayagüez, and there's different locations throughout Puerto Rico, so don't just limit it to San Juan if you decide to go there. There are multiple beautiful locations to see. Historia de Puerto Rico. In order to truly understand the Puerto Rican people, we must go back into their troubled history and centuries of oppression. It's one of those things that you just cannot ignore. So the original inhabitants of the island were the Taino people, who were hunter-gatherers. They were friendly people. The island was originally called Boricuan, which was 1,000 years prior to the Spanish arrival, and why native people of the island call themselves Boricua, even to this day. But the name only really applies to those born to the island. In 1493, Christopher Columbus discovered Puerto Rico on his second voyage and claimed the island for Spain. In 1508, colonization of the island began under Ponce de Leon, the first governor of Puerto Rico, calling it Capra. By 1521, the island was renamed to Puerto Rico, meaning rich port. Sadly, during this time frame, the Taino peoples were oppressed and forced into slavery by the Spanish. The introduction of European diseases such as smallpox killed off the Taino people, which resulted in the introduction of Western African slaves around 1512. For nearly 400 years, Puerto Rico remained under Spanish rule, in which the island would produce cattle, sugarcane, coffee, and tobacco. In 1898, Puerto Rico became an American territory following the Spanish-American War. This is where things start to get a little messed up for the Puerto Rican people. Around 1920, in the wake of World War I, the Jones Act was signed, making goods transported between the United States and Puerto Rico extremely expensive. And this is honestly where the debt really starts to begin for the Puerto Rican people. Under the Jones Act, the Puerto Ricans gain American citizenship, yet all ships transporting goods to Puerto Rico must go through the United States first, which obviously jacks up the price of all goods coming into the ports of Puerto Rico. Now, I'm sure you've heard about the $70 billion worth of debt that the country's in, and some of the things that have been neglected to even be mentioned is that the fact that the island has to deal with certain natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes, but the American people can use the Puerto Ricans within their military. We can send them overseas just like any other American, and the prices are just so incredibly high of the goods that are coming from the States to Puerto Rico. It makes it almost impossible for people to live. Not to mention the corruption in the government down there and the lack of American intervention to correct those corruptions.
The clashes following a day of massive demonstrations, the anger aimed at the island's governor reaching a boiling point as hundreds of thousands demand he step down.
It's just one of those things that with this being a commonwealth of the United States and not an actual state, it means that Puerto Rico cannot file for bankruptcy or request a bailout. So here's the troublesome thing when you really truly think about it, is I grew up in the States and I went to school here, and I did not even know about Puerto Rico until well into my military career when I had soldiers that were actually from Puerto Rico. And I started learning a little bit back then. And then as time goes on, you start to learn a little bit more. And now that I actually am in a very serious relationship with one, I have a bigger picture of all of it. And so when you really start diving deep into this research on the understanding of Puerto Rico and its relationship with the United States, it's kind of troubling. So I don't want to get too much in depth on the debt, because the debt shouldn't be there in the first place. What makes the culture of Puerto Rico so incredibly unique and beautiful in comparison to the United States is that the island is made up of mainly 3 ethnic groups. Now, this is not limited to, there's many other ethnic groups in the mix of this, but the 3 main ones were the Taino peoples, the Spanish, and the Western Africans. Even though the Taino peoples were killed off in the 1500s, they do live on within the interracial breeding that took place back in the 1500s and the 1400s upon the arrival of the Spanish. The people of Puerto Rico, unlike the United States, merged their cultures. That is what's so incredibly beautiful about it. And what I mean by this is that instead of segregation that took place in the United States and the racial division that still resides in this country today, Puerto Rico accepted and made all 3 cultures their own. So you know a little Spanish, but do you know Puerto Rican Spanish? So we are in the Spanish class and we've learned quite a bit throughout the last couple of months of the semester. However, due to the merging of cultures over the centuries, the native language in Puerto Rico is in fact Spanish, yet there are multiple words within this language that have Western African background. In addition to this, during the 1940s when the United States tried to industrialize Puerto Rico, they also attempted to make the official language of Puerto Rico English. This attempt introduced a different dynamic to the Spanish already being spoken on the island, which resulted in a lot of quote-unquote Spanglish. Puerto Ricans today tend to have a lot of slang in their Spanish while also adding some additional English words which will completely throw you off.
Went to the store to buy some bananas, but they were all sold out. Fui a la tienda a comprar unas bananas, pero ya no quedaban. Fui al store a comprar some bananas, pero ya estaban sold out.
Fun fact, las chancletas. So here's a fun fact for you. As a child, some of us might have caught a beat down. You got a little spanking, maybe caught a belt or something. In Puerto Rico, it is not uncommon to get beat down by las chanclas. La fiesta. So as mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, Puerto Ricans are genuinely happy, festive people. Song and dance is a way of life for these people, and there's many holidays and festivals to celebrate some form of religious significance or their origins, their cultural background. So here's the thing, have you ever heard of Three Kings Day? Funny story from last year, as a matter of fact. To truly understand Puerto Rico, we got to compare it to the United States, because in the United States we have Thanksgiving and we got Christmas, and then we have the New Year, and then it's right back to school and work again, and nobody even talks about it afterwards. So in Puerto Rico you have Three Kings Day, which takes place on the 6th of January, and so basically what it is to commemorate the wise men that visited the newborn Christ, including children stack boxes, hay under their beds for camels of the wise men to find, and that's another reason to exchange gifts and celebrate. And so last year we celebrated this within my own household, but my own family did not get it. Like, my father was kind of questioning, like, oh, why do you need to not go to work today? It's like, come on, man, like, you know what I mean? So that's a major difference between American mainland culture and some of the cultural differences down in Puerto Rico. Now, in addition to this celebration, I cannot ignore parrandas. Saludos. And this is something that I have yet to experience, but it's definitely something that I really want to do, which happens during the Christmas holiday season when friends and family surprise other friends and family by quietly gathering on the doorstep of an unsuspected family. They play instruments and sing, which happens after 10 p.m. in order to surprise the family, which invites the group in for more partying and food and celebration. And it sounds like such an amazing time, something way different than just showing up on somebody's doorstep singing boring carols. Bailar conmigo. To this day, I have yet to meet a Puerto Rican that cannot dance. Dance and music have always been traditional cultural expressions of Puerto Rico's ethnic heritage. To simplify this topic, we know by now that the original inhabitants of Puerto Rico were the Tainos who performed dance to celebrate and communicate. Bomba was developed on the coast of the island in the 17th century by the West African slaves. Bomba is a rhythmic connection to the drummer, which is used to communicate, celebrate marriages, baptisms, and even plan rebellions. Although many people are quite familiar with the very popular salsa dance, this dance was preceded by the main dance of Puerto Rico, plena. Plena was first believed to be introduced in the early 1900s in Ponce. Plena, it has a connection to all cultural heritages in Puerto Rico. This dance has a flavor of European, African, and indigenous background by the music's beat and rhythm, which are usually played by hand drums called panderos. The music is accompanied by the scrape of a guro. Puertorriqueño famoso. This is an incredibly tough topic to address. There are many famous and influential Boricuas that have shined on the mainland United States, whether it was in the music industry with Ricky Martin, Daddy Yankee, or Luis Fonsi, or maybe you are familiar with actors like Rito Moreno, Bonicio de Toro, or Luis Guzman. There is one Puerto Riqueño that we cannot forget, Roberto Clemente. Roberto Clemente is a Puerto Riqueño professional baseball player who graced the MLB for 18 seasons, 3,000 hits, 240 home runs in the 1960s and 70s, becoming the first Latin American and Caribbean player to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. This, however, does not define Roberto Clemente. He was the example of what famous people should portray as well-known charity work in the Latin American community during his off seasons, often delivering baseball equipment, teaching children, and food to the Caribbean. Roberto was tragically taken from us in 1972 in a plane crash when he was en route to aid earthquake victims in Nicaragua. Roberto Clemente is greatly missed by the Puerto Rican people and the people of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In conclusion, I could probably go on about Puerto Rico for the next couple of hours. There's a lot of things that I did not cover and that I wish I had more time to do. However, I will state that I am absolutely blessed to be a part of such a beautiful culture and have had the great opportunity to research and have a better understanding on the culture. I hope you were able to get something out of this video today, and I thank you for watching.
Puerto Rico.